Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Justin Varney. I'm the Director of Public Health for Birmingham City Council, and I'm joining you for this last webinar just to give a couple of short comments before I hand over to Helen, who is more than excellent to keep you going for the topic of discussion today. The idea of Be Healthy really came about because we recognise that firstly, people had really suffered and struggled through the first wave of COVID to look after their own health and well-being. But also, as we went through the first wave, we got much better understanding about the risk factors that mean that if you caught COVID, you could become seriously ill or die. And so the topics that we focused on have very much been chosen because these are things that we can all take action on to reduce the risk of becoming seriously unwell if we catch COVID. We translated the resources into multiple languages, and we're really grateful for those of you who've joined us for these webinars to learn in a bit more detail and delve into some of these topics in a bit more detail so that you build your own learning, but also the work that you're doing with clients, with family and friends can help bring this to life. It's been really important we've taken an evidence-based approach. There's a lot of fake news out there, not just on COVID, but on all sorts of things. And actually, we hoped by bringing together some of the evidence, by drawing on local experts and partners, people like Helen, Kim, who did the session for you on physical activity, and others, Stuart King from over in, I think he's in East Anglia, who did behaviour change. There's been a whole range of people who've given their time freely to help increase your understanding of these topics, and I'm really grateful for the time and effort that they've put into this. I've been lucky enough to join a couple of them, but also I've watched some of them back, and I think there's an amazing amount of resource and information there, which I think is really fantastic and really does help us move forward in supporting communities, supporting individuals to make changes that really do last a lifetime and help reduce the risk of dying from COVID, but actually more importantly, help people feel healthier and happier and have better lives. And that's what underpins all of this. This is about helping people be the best they can be. And I think all of us recognize that we can't all fix everything all at once. So, one of the key things I would say is that using the Be Healthy tool and that weekly tracker just helps you keep track on a couple of small things and try and make a small change every day, moving in the right direction. We all trip up, we all have bad days where we can't resist the biscuit tin, or days where work just means that we get about 4 hours sleep rather than the 7 we should be aiming for. That's okay. And it's important not to get those trips mean that we give up the journey that we're on. And a lot of what the work that those of you watching this and partaking in it today, your role is both as individuals for yourselves, and I want to reinforce that point in a minute, but also the clients and the citizens that you work with. I want to just pause a second to just reflect on that point about how we look after ourselves. As we go into the second wave of COVID, which is very definitely with us now, it's very easy if you're someone that gives to keep giving and not take time to look after yourself. And that will lead to burnout. It leads to all of those negative things that we would sit down with other people and say, you need to stop and take a moment. We often forget when it's ourselves. So I would ask all of you to take a moment today and reflect on today's topic of sleep and a little bit about how are you looking after your own sleep as well as the people you're working with, because it's so easy for all of us to put other people first and eventually we will just fall over, unfortunately. Sleep is important for everyone. There's more and more research being done on sleep every year. Several years ago, I did a piece of work when I was at Public Health England with business and the community on a sleep toolkit for businesses. And it was really interesting because on the kind of health side of things, people were going, what are you making all the fusses about? But actually on the business side, businesses were saying sleep is a real issue. We're seeing it impact. People make mistakes when they're tired, they're crabby and irritable. So you can actually draw a really strong correlation between businesses where people don't get enough sleep and how many grievances and complaints there are, because when we are tired, our fuses are that little bit less, and there's all sorts of evidence about what depriving yourself of sleep actually does to your body. And I'll try not to steal Helen's thunder, but there's, it's an incredible range of things, from your fertility through to cancer risk, where not getting enough sleep does have an impact on your physical health as well as your mental health and well-being. So if we just go on to the final slide, I think it is, before I hand over to Helen. There we go. This is going to be my hand over to Helen point. I just want to say a final big thank you to all of you. We can't change people's behaviour from the council very easily. There are things that do sit with us that are about cycle lanes and trying to improve the economy and the food offering and those kind of things. But actually the way that we support people to improve their sleep behaviours and many of their lifestyle behaviours is through individual conversations. And those conversations are the conversations that we all have every day with friends and family, as well as with clients and service users. And so as you go into this session with Helen, which I'm sure will be another fantastic session, I would ask you to just keep in mind those 2 points from me. One, look after yourselves. We have a long way to go, sadly, on the COVID journey. And secondly, approach every conversation as if it really mattered, because it does. And you never know when the conversation you're having is the one that tips the boat or tips the balance into someone actually making a life change for the better. So I hope that you'll find today interesting. Thank you again, Helen, for leading this for us today. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us. I'm really proud of what you're all achieving. And I hope that Be Healthy creates a legacy that will help the city, citizens, families, communities, and individuals weather the coming days and weeks slightly better than they would have done without us. So over to you, Helen.
Thank you, Justin. And having heard you disclose that you did a lot of research into sleep and the importance of sleep, I am now thinking, I think Justin might be better off leading this session than me. But I will do my best. And I think, it is to really underpin what Justin has said about sleep is very often not given the recognition and the importance that it has for both our physical and our mental well-being. And so during this session, we're going to cover why sleep is important for our mental health and our physical health, but also then looking at how can we improve our sleep, how can we give those tips to other people about improving their sleep. And I'm joined today by one of my colleagues, Rebecca Nolan, who will give you a bit of an example about how sleep is really vital to her mental well-being and keeping resilient. And I think, we've got a long way to go, and we all need to be resilient. And a core part of being resilient is about ensuring that we get enough rest and that we get enough sleep. And if you're lucky enough to have a really good sleep pattern, that's fantastic. I'm very envious, but actually for a lot of people, sleep is an issue and it needs work in order to improve. It's not something that will just improve on its own. It really does need that work. So I'll be going over that sort of like how do people get better quality sleep later on in the presentation. I'll try and whip through some of the slides quite quickly. So next slide, please. And then go on to the next one, please. So this is just a bit of an overview about some of the sort of unexpected benefits that sleep has. And you'll see in there about rapid muscle toning, which we'll come back to, and the importance of sleep in terms of that, our bodies, and even sort of high performance athletes. Definitely it plays a role in that immune system, which is one of the reasons why it's been chosen to be part of the Be Healthy campaign as well. And healthier skins, reduce stress levels, etc. So there's an awful lot of benefits that will pick and choose our way through some of them. Next slide, please. So if we have a good night's sleep, what tends to happen? It tends to be that obviously we will feel a bit brighter, hopefully, but we're better able to make healthier food choices. If, you know, I'm sure I will speak to a number of you when I sort of shared that if I haven't had enough sleep the following day, I just really crave carbohydrate, sugar, fat, anything that's bad for me, because I'm trying to sort of make up for the fact that I haven't had enough sleep. So sleep, we eat healthier. We've obviously got the sort of increased energy, increased concentration. It helps us to be that more alert, to be safer when we're driving, to be better in our workplaces, and undertaking, you know, sort of undertaking complex tasks. And it has an impact on our increased, on our life expectancy as well. You know, sort of, it really can't stress strongly enough that sleep impacts on every organ in our body, and so it really is the one, you know, one of the core things that we need to be focusing on in terms of sort of improving our physical and our mental well-being. Next slide, please. And lack of sleep, you know, they use sleep deprivation for torture purposes in some countries, and there's a real reason for that, because even short-term sleep deprivation can have a massive impact on our ability for our bodies and our minds to be working during the day. We will feel a lot jumpier, we will have different levels of hormones going through our body. We will have an increased level of the stress hormone cortisol that will be going, so we will just feel that generally more stressed. It raises our blood pressure, and it impedes our ability to do that regulation of blood sugar, which is why, certainly for me, I'll be craving the sweets and the chocolates if I haven't had enough sleep. Next slide, please. It also, you know, if we have been exercising a lot, or if we have got problems with our joints, the lack of sleep stops the body from being able to do that repairing itself. You know, there's an awful lot of both mental and physical repairing that goes on whilst we're asleep, and so it, you know, sort of that inflammation will stay more pronounced in our body without enough sleep. And it definitely, as I said, you know, sort of has the impact on our immune system. And going back to food, not that I'm, you know, slightly obsessed about food, but, you know, sleep deprivation, it increases the hormones in our body which make us feel hungry, but also there are hormones in our body which sort of regulate and say, no, we've had enough food now, you know, put down your knife and fork, leave the food, you've had enough. But actually having poor quality sleep or insufficient sleep means that hormone decreases. So as a result, we eat more. So we eat more, and we eat more of the wrong things when we are sleep deprived. Next slide, please. I mentioned briefly about high performance sport, and I think, you know, sleep isn't just about our day-to-day being, really. Sleep is really important for athletes, for footballers. Nowadays, it is really not unusual for football clubs to have sleep coaches for their elite footballers, because they recognise the importance of sleep in terms of that being able to be a high performance athlete. When the body is training, when the muscles are being used, when the concentration is being used, all that sort of muscle memory. Where that is consolidated really is when we sleep. So, you know, it's not on the training field, it is actually when we sleep that our body and our mind consolidates all of the work that they've been, you know, that we've been doing on the practice fields. So, you know, sleep now, it has just really got that growing recognition of how important it is for elite athletes as well as everyone else. Next slide, please. So it plays sort of an important role in everything, as we've seen, really, that, you know, our daily work, our sports performance, memory, learning, mood, judgment, well-being, physical well-being. And we often talk about, well, getting enough sleep. So it's really thinking about, well, what is enough sleep? Next slide, please. So there are two aspects, really. It's about enough hours of sleep, but it is also about quality of sleep. So it's very much trying to get those two in tandem with each other. Some of us need more sleep, some of us need less sleep. I am, you know, sort of, I never really like using this example because it's Margaret Thatcher, and I don't like using Margaret Thatcher as an example, but she, you know, famously only ever needed 4 hours of sleep a night in order to do a job. So we all need different levels of sleep, different amounts of sleep, and it's about finding what is your optimum amount of sleep, as well as then focusing on the quality of it. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is just an average, and bearing in mind it is an average about, you know, sort of at what age do we need more sleep and less sleep. I think just sort of, you know, a couple of the important ones really. So the 12 to 18-year-olds down at the bottom saying that they need between 8 and 9 hours of sleep. And it's this common thing, isn't it, about teenagers always being in bed and always sleeping and never being able to pry them away from their bed. There is a real rationale behind that, because actually when you are at that age, because your body is growing, because your mind is growing, you need more sleep to do that consolidation of that learning and do that consolidation of your physical well-being as well. And so on the whole, teenagers do need more sleep. Now, if you're anything like, you know, if you've got a child who's like my niece, who tries to convince her mum and dad that she needs 20 hours of sleep out of 24, that might be slightly excessive. But there is the thing about, actually, if you've got teenagers, it's really important that you work with them around sleep hygiene and getting better quality sleep, and recognizing that they do need more sleep than those of us in the adult age bracket. So on average, we need, if we're sort of 18 between 18 and 65, we need 7 to 9 hours worth of sleep. But as I say, it is very variable from person to person. Next slide, please. So thinking about mental health, how does sleep impact on mental health? There's sort of two ways that sleep impacts on our mental health, and it ends up being a bit of a vicious circle. So if we don't get enough sleep, then our mental well-being suffers. And equally, if we've got mental health problems, or we're struggling with our mental health, that will have a negative impact on our sleep as well. Next slide, please. So as this one, you can see the circle of, if we don't get enough sleep, we're tired, everything seems to be much harder to deal with if we're not got enough sleep. So we start finding it difficult to deal with our daily lives. That might impact on our sleep, our esteem, and it's likely to increase the feelings of worry and stress that we've got about what's happening in our lives. And then when we go to bed, those worries and those stresses are what keeps us awake. and therefore we get lack of sleep and we go back around the cycle. So really quite quickly, poor sleep will start impacting on everyone's mental health. And obviously, if you've got formal mental health issues and you're struggling with your mental health, it will have a much greater impact on you. Next slide, please. So what problems might people have with their sleep and why? I'm going to just have a few slides on these two aspects. So in terms of when we say we've got problems with our sleep, what do we mean? I think, you know, it's like we very often assume we know. If someone says, oh, I'm having trouble sleeping, we assume that we know what that is. But actually there is a wide range of different problems with sleep. And then there is also, there are problems, there are different problems around sleep patterns, and therefore there are different solutions to those sleep patterns. So I was slightly distracted by the very good question around sleep and pain, and I will cover that from a very personal viewpoint as well. So we might find it difficult to fall asleep, or we might find it easy to fall asleep, but actually, you know, 2 hours later, we're wide awake, we're worried about things, our mind's racing, we can't get back to sleep. Or we wake up really early in the morning and we can't get back to sleep and we just lie there desperately trying to get back to sleep. Or it might be that we can fall asleep, but actually falling asleep almost becomes fearful, because when we fall asleep, we know that we're going to fall into a recurring nightmare, or we're going to have a panic attack, or we're going to have flashbacks about some trauma. And so sleep becomes this thing to be feared. And therefore people stay up and they try really hard to do with, you know, to do with the smallest amount of sleep possible. Next slide, please. I won't bother going through that slide because, you know, sort of, I would imagine we all know what it feels like to be tired and sleepy when we haven't had a good night's sleep. And it is that thing, as you know, an example about that. Our brains feel fuzzy. We are slower. We're not, you know, sort of, we're not as quick to pick things up. And, you know, it feels as though the washing up's too much to do. It feels as though our work's too much to do. It's just that everything becomes too much. And that is just down to that lack of sleep and lack of quality of sleep. Next slide, please. So when we sort of either find it difficult to get to sleep or we wake up, what are sort of some of the common reasons why we would do that? So there's some physical ones and then there's some mental ones. So mentally, it might well be that we've got a lot of stress, that we've got a lot of anxieties going on. We might have money worries, you know, particularly at the moment with COVID, our fear for our friends, for our family, for ourselves, our anxiety about what's happening with our work at the moment, about, you know, how we can pay the rent, how we can function. You know, there is a lot of fear and anxiety that is out there at the moment, you know, more than any time in certainly in my generation. And so it's not surprising that there is a real impact on our quality of sleep. But there's also some sort of physical things around how our bedrooms are set up and how we use our bedrooms, and that sort of gives us a bit of a key as to how we can improve our sleep, really, is thinking about that, you know, how making sure that we're comfortable and making sure that we see our bed as a sanctuary. There are some health disorders which are sort of formally diagnosed as sleep disorders, and there's a slide at the end of the pack where people can get more information about those specific sleep disorders if they want to, but we're not covering that today. This is just very much that sort of general, how can we all improve our sleep and how can we give people tips to improve their sleep. Next slide, please. Thank you. just picking a couple of this slide. Being a shift worker, working overnight, there's an awful lot of research and, you know, sort of growing body really about the negative impacts both psychologically and physically on shift workers working during the night. And it is really important that if you or family member or friend are doing shift work, that you actually get a physical health check once a year around it, because it does have an impact, and the older you get, the worse the impact becomes. You know, and Justin mentioned about that, you know, ability to be resilient around the second wave, you know, and for our NHS staff and for other key workers, care workers or shop workers or whatever, there is an awful lot of people that are not only working full on, they're working full on during the night, being awake during the night, and that has a negative impact. And so it is important that people do have regular health checks around that, and you should get it through your employer, but if you don't, then it's a case of you know, going and seeing your GP and just having a general health MOT really. And the other one is issues around sort of the current or past traumas, and that can be very much keeping you awake. It might be because you've got the flashbacks to it, or it might be that it's related, the trauma is related to your home or to the room that you're in, or the time of day, etc. So there's a lot of sort of interplay. So I think, you know, if you're supporting someone who has been through a trauma, it is really important to talk to them about the impact that that trauma is having on their sleep, and then, you know, what can be done about it. Next slide, please. So how can I improve my sleep? Just going to look at some general tips really around improving sleep. Next slide, please. Routine. It works in terms of keeping mentally healthy. So if any of you joined us for the mental health one, you know, sort of in workplace well-being, that routine, keeping a routine when the world around us is feeling very strange is vital. Equally for sleep, keeping a routine can be really crucial. And there are different tips that you can try that will work through. And so for some people, some of these tips will work better than others. So, you know, it is a bit of a pick and mix, but ultimately to try and create that framework of going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time each day, and it almost is sort of, we need to tell our bodies that it is time to sleep, and then it is time to wake 7 to 9 hours after we've gone to sleep. And it's creating that framework, which is really important. I do have one of my friends who, and there is evidence behind this, but if she can't fall asleep within a quarter of an hour of going to bed, she gets up and she goes and stands outside, regardless of the weather. She doesn't take a book with her, she doesn't take a phone with her, nothing. She just stands there and waits until her body says, okay, I'll sleep then. And then she goes back to bed. And that's her way, and she uses it very successfully about, you know, sort of not rewarding your body for staying awake, really creating that. Going to bed means sleep. I'm sure there's other things that people can do in their bedroom, but actually we need to create that. Bed is for sleep. Next slide, please. So in order to sort of set ourselves up for that good night, you know, sort of the mug of cocoa might be an old wives' tale, but actually, you know, there is strong evidence around it that, you know, we need to not be drinking alcohol. We need to be trying to spend the first the hour or two before we go to bed about really trying to calm ourselves down. So that is including, you know, not eating large meals, not drinking alcohol, not eating sugary foods, but doing that calming down, doing those visualization exercises, doing those meditations, which will help with our mental well-being as much as it will help with our sleep. But it is all about trying to calm us down so that we don't go to bed already quite stressed and sort of hyper, really. Next slide, please. Quite often it can be really useful if you're sort of working at trying to improve your sleep, is to keep a sleep diary, and then you can try different ways of getting to sleep, and you can figure out what works for you, and that can become really important because, you know, this does take work, and we can all sort of fall off the wagon when, you know, sort of things seem to work a bit, so, you know, we carry on and everything then starts to deteriorate again, and we forget what it is that works for us around our sleep patterns and making sure that we get enough sleep. So actually keeping a sleep diary can be really useful. Next slide, please. In terms of that physical environment, it is really about ensuring that your bedroom is a sanctuary and your bed is a sanctuary. And it is simple things like making sure that your curtains don't let the light in, making sure that your bed is comfortable enough, not having a TV in your bedroom. It's really, really bad for your sleep to have a TV on and to have a TV in your bedroom. Even if it's not on, again, it's that you need to walk into the room and go, this is where I sleep. And it needs to be clear of clutter, which I have to say I do struggle with at times. Next slide, please. And I definitely struggle at this one. So, you know, I recognise that I am preaching about something which I don't always take my own advice for, but screens and devices, we all really need to be putting them down an hour or two before we go to bed. Certainly not taking our phones with us to bed, certainly not looking at our phones before we fall asleep, definitely not if we wake up during the night looking at our phones. It really, you know, to get that good quality sleep needs work and needs boundaries. And we need to be putting our screens and our tablets away, because both the colours and the sort of actual screen itself, plus the activity, just stimulates us, which goes against the having good sleep. Next slide, please. So there are other things that you can do to help with your sleep pattern. So it is about making sure that physically we're looking after ourselves. Mentioned about the food and the caffeine and everything, but it is important that we do some type of physical activity every day. And it is important that we try and get some green space outside. So again, that will help with your mental well-being, but it will also help with your sleep. So there's a lot of crossover between the whole issues around mental well-being and sleep, and what, you know, things like the meditation, physical exercise, eating healthily will improve that mental well-being and improve your sleep. Next slide, please. If you are struggling to sleep because of particular stresses and worries, it is important, obviously, to try and deal with those. You know, whilst there are things that you can do around sleep hygiene that are within your control, there are some things which are outside of our control. And so if we have got worries or we've got issues around addiction, it is important that we get help for those, because that will then enable us to sleep better, as well as obviously having better quality of lives, both physically and mentally. Next slide, please. There are various sort of formal treatments and things around helping with sleep problems, but to be honest, you know, the tips around what I've gone through will hopefully work for 90% of people, as long as you really give it a good go and give it a good try. But if it's not working, or you've got a formal sleep disorder, then it is a case of getting more help from that through the NHS. Next slide, please. Those are just some of the help that I mentioned around the formal sleep disorders. And then the next slide is around looking at how to get that help around the associated issues to do with sleep, so the anxiety around money, drugs, alcohol, etc. We've got the waiting room, which is a fantastic online resource, which is run by a local charity, and that has got a whole range of help that people can use and can freely access. And then we, Birmingham Mind, run the mental health helpline for the city, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we will do anything from very much that self-help activities all the way through to supporting someone to get formal NHS mental health assessment and mental health treatment. So we do the full range. So we wanted to just, in Birmingham, have one number that people call about anything to do with mental health and mental well-being, and so that's the number, and it's just, please, nothing else, make sure that people are aware that that is there for them. Next slide, please. It also goes through, we're also able to access counselling for people, sometimes in less than 24 hours. So there's no long waiting queues for it. There's been an awful lot of work that's been put into Birmingham for it. So that's the end of my formal one. I've just got a few more minutes for before I hand back to Justin. So just before I bring Becky in to talk about mental health and sleep, I know that there was the question around pain and sleep. I suffer from chronic pain myself. I take vast quantities of medication. Sleep is incredibly important to me, but sometimes can just be incredibly hard for me to achieve. The one thing which has made the biggest difference in my life, you know, is meditation, and actually doing meditation for chronic pain. And that helps me with sleep. It also helps me manage my pain levels. It doesn't change the pain, but it helps me change how I would respond to that pain. So I'm not lying in bed worrying that I'm going to not be able to get any sleep that night because of the pain. It changes that focus. Becky, can I bring you in to just give people a few minutes around your experiences of sleep?
Yeah, can you hear me, Helen?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, hi everyone. So sleep's really important to me. I'm one of those people that need my 7 to 8 sleep, so I really feel irritable and stress. You know, I start to feel stressed if I don't get sleep. I've had to work on my sleep over the years. I've got a busy job. I work for Birmingham Mind and manage our recovery and wellbeing services, and I'm a single mum, so busy life. I do some caring activities for my sister with learning disabilities, so busy life. And I really need, you know, I think as you get older, you realise and you work on coping strategies for sleep. So I generally sleep 8 hours in the week, lighter in the week, really. I don't know, I think sometimes we sleep lighter in the week just because we're so busy, our minds are so busy with work. One of my tips is if I've got a really busy stuff going on at work, lots of deadlines, and I'm finding it hard to switch off, I've got a notepad near my bed, so if anything pops into my head, I'll just write, oh, I've forgotten to do this, just write it, and then it's forgotten. Exercise, I went on my 20-minute walk this morning, so I'm really quite passionate that exercise, you know, keeps me well, and it's one of the factors that does help me to sleep. Healthy eating as much as possible. I'm sure in the lockdown we've all you know, been tempted by chocolates and not so healthy eating habits, but as much as possible. I've just given up smoking about 3 months ago, so I'm on a vape, which I'm sure that's will help me with my sleep.
Okay.
So, and another thing that I do look forward to at the weekend, I generally sleep heavier at the weekend, and I might sneak in a little afternoon nap on a Saturday or Sunday, because it's just I just feel it's a bit of a luxury, and you know, I generally feel that sleep is a healer. And it's I've obviously worked with people that have really suffered with not having enough sleep, and people that have suffered with psychosis due to insomnia, and seeing that, seeing people really in pain with mental pain, not sleeping. So it is really important, and I think it's it's something that we all have to work on, and it's as important as healthy eating, exercise, not smoking, limiting our alcohol intake. So I really do believe sleep is a great healer.
And do you find, Becky, if you're starting to struggle a bit mentally, that you see a change in your sleep pattern?
Yeah, I'll sleep lighter. I might wake up, but then I've learnt to cope with that as well. If I feel oh, my sleep pattern's changing, I'm waking up in the night. I come down, I'll sit on I kind of have the same routine, a repeated routine. I'll make a hot drink, read a book for 10-20 minutes, and then go back up, and that works for me. But that's a routine I've had to repeat when my sleep's not so good. It's like a repeated routine that works for me. It's kind of tricking my mind into saying that this is what happens when I don't sleep. This is what I do, and then I'm ready for sleep again.
Yeah, and it is finding those different routines for each of us, isn't it? About what works to help us get back to sleep and be able to get that good quality sleep. Any other tips that you've got for people, Beck?
And don't feel guilty sometimes if you come home from work, or you've had a really, really busy day, and you just feel that you do. I'd say every few weeks I really need a good sleep, and I find myself in bed at 7:30. I'm thinking this is ridiculous, but not to feel guilty about it, because sometimes I think just go with your body and go with your tiredness. Accept it, that's what you need. I think our bodies and minds often tell us. So if you do need that longer sleep every so often, just go with it.
Yeah, and I certainly know as well, in terms of that pain management, that sometimes if the pain gets uncontrollable, and even with meditation and medication, it's just not coming back under control, that actually, if I'm able to sleep for 20 minutes, it helps to reset me physically. And although it feels as though I'm in so much pain that there's no way that I can sleep, it almost feels as though, as long as I give my body the sort of physical position to sleep, it will sleep, because it recognises that that's what I need in order to be able to carry on when things do just feel very on the edge, really, physically for me. So it sort of sounds as though it's very similar from that mental health point of view and physical health point of view.
It's having that switch off time, and it's you just feel so much, sometimes I've had afternoon naps if I have had a really busy week and challenging week. Those afternoon, it's like a power nap. It's kind of resetting your body. I don't have a TV in my room. I just think that is a no-no, and I do try my best, and I think it's hard for all of us with being in the digital age that we are, but I do try my best not to be looking at my phone, at least an hour before I go to sleep. And if I do wake up, it's a book that I'll read, and not look at my phone, because I feel for teenagers. My son's 18 now, and I think teenagers do, out of everybody, spend so much time on their phone. It does, like you said, back to the slide about teenagers needing more sleep. I think it's really important to talk to our teenagers about the importance of sleep and the importance of that limiting, reducing their screen time.
Yeah, as difficult as that can be, to have that conversation with teenagers. Thank you, Becky. There's more information that's on that slide. So just before I hand back to Justin as well, I wanted to mention the Every Mind Matters website, which is a general mental health, mental well-being. You can get it as an app, or you can do it online, but there are modules around sleep. But there is a lot of information out there about how to improve your sleep, and it is something which, sort of, hopefully people understand that they do have to, we all have to put a bit of work into having a good sleep routine and a good sleep pattern, but actually if we do, it will pay off in terms of our mental health and our physical health. And at the moment we just need to be doing everything we possibly can to be mentally and physically as fit as possible. So thank you all very much. I'll hand back over to Justin, and I think he's picked up one of the questions that I've seen in the chat.
Great, thanks, Helen. So just before I go into the questions, I can see that the team have put up the link for becoming a COVID champion. So I'll just plug that. Really important to encourage people to sign up to be COVID champions. You get text messages to cascade from us. There's emails as well. There's a weekly data kind of sit rep that comes out, and there are also weekly Q&A sessions with members of my team. So it's a great way of you getting access to the most up-to-date, accurate, truthful information to share with the people that you care about in your personal and professional networks. So do sign up, and I think we're just under 400 champions, which we've recruited over the last 3 weeks. So it's going really well, and really love to have more there. So I think we're just looking at some of the questions that have come up with the chat, and I think Helen did a great job talking about pain, and I thought some brilliant tips from Becky there. I'm certainly one of those people that keep a pad by the bed and scribble down those thoughts that keep me awake in the middle of the night. Sometimes they're great ideas, sometimes they're just things that I can't seem to let go of, and writing them down, there is some good evidence around that. I can see someone also, Maria's raised the important point of sleep apnea. So sleep apnea is a condition where basically you, the upper airways, so your upper throat collapses while you're asleep. So the muscle tone over relaxes, you go into a deep sleep, and it basically closes off. So you stop breathing, and then you wake up again because you're not breathing, so your body wakes you up, and so you end up having very interrupted sleep. And normally we see it in people that are very overweight or have thyroid problems, so that where they've got extra mass around their neck. But there are some other conditions that are associated with it. And what I would say is, what a doctor's looking for, if you want to, if you are concerned about this, they really will want to see your sleep diary. It's a really important step. So if you are concerned and you are having problems with sleeping, as Helen said, a sleep diary is really important, because if you do go and see your GP, that's one of the first things they'll ask you to do, and then come back and see them in a couple of weeks. So if you've already done it, you kind of skip that step and get on to things much faster. And there are all sorts of different types of sleep apnea devices now. So CPAP, which is continuous pressure, is a good way of supporting that, and some of them use nose cannula, so there's little pipes that sit under the nose. Some of it's face masks, and you can get different types of face masks. My father uses CPAP. At the moment he has Parkinson's disease, and it's been really interesting experience over the last 5 or 6 months since he got diagnosed, trying to find the right mask that worked for him, because people with Parkinson's often get a tremor in their jaw while they're sleeping, so the face mask doesn't fit very well, but it's definitely worth keeping an eye out for. Louise asked about melatonin. I've put a link in the chat. The evidence base about melatonin is really weak, frankly. There are two kind of sides to this. One is it's weak because it's not considered a drug, so there aren't any drug companies kind of doing the trials that we would need to show that it works. And the other is where there have been trials, because people were particularly looking at it in relation to shift work and jet lag. The evidence that they found is that it didn't make a huge amount of difference. Now, the good news is that melatonin doesn't really have many side effects. It's not a particularly risky supplement to take. So, sometimes it can be worth a try. But the latest evidence review, which is what I put in the chat box, suggests that really it isn't effective for people who have chronic insomnia. So you, by all means, if you're having trouble for a couple of days, give it a shot. But the evidence is weak, and that the other things like keeping a sleep diary, like having a note by the side of the bed, like not watching TV, not having your phone in the room, much stronger evidence for those things. Although, you know, often we want to pop a pill because it feels like it's easier. Actually, that, you know, the evidence for that particular type of pills not particularly good. There was a question from Sarah around teenagers and teenage sleep patterns, and I often have a feeling that teenagers are a bit like cats in that they sleep all day and are awake all night. And you know, the evidence base on this is that basically, as teenagers grow, the amount of sleep they need doesn't really change, but the way that they sleep does. So their pattern, basically, as they grow older, they can stay awake later, but they have to make up that sleep. So they're not getting better at sleeping less, they're just finding different ways of scheduling it. And that's why often you have teenagers will go to bed late, much later than when they're younger children or when we become older adults, but they end up then lying in all morning or having to have disco naps in the afternoon because they've still got to get the same amount of sleep, which for teenagers on average is about 9 hours. So it is longer than adults, and that's because their body is developing, they're growing, so they need more of that recharge time than older adults or younger children's. And final question that's come up in the chat is from Sarah around, is the COVID champions different to community health champions? Yes, it is. The COVID champions is very specifically about COVID. So all the information that's being cascaded out is about COVID safety, it's data on COVID, it's the latest kind of alerts, information on the guidance. And we with the COVID champions, it's very much trying to help us put in the hands of as many people as possible the truth. You know, there's too many bits of fake news going around, and the COVID champions is a model that we borrowed from Newham, and we built on it and made it very Birmingham. And I think that is, you know, it's a great opportunity to really get the information that can help protect you, the people that you love and care about, and help us control COVID in the city. So do sign up to it. It's a great way of getting information. So there's a question from Ibrahim about anxiety related to sleep. And I don't know whether, Helen, you want to come back in on this one.
Just do the unmute. I think for the anxiety one, it's trying to identify what you are anxious about as the first point, and whether you can actually do something about that anxiety. So, you know, sort of, is it anxiety about something that's happening to you in your life at the moment, or is it what we would call generalized anxiety, where you're just really anxious but you find it difficult to actually identify why you're anxious? And in order to get a better quality sleep, it is learning how to handle that anxiety, how to deal with that anxiety. I am a huge fan of meditation. I know I've mentioned it several times. There is strong evidence around meditation, but it really does help, and I've seen it help countless people in terms of dealing with that anxiety, particularly the sort of generalized anxiety, because anxiety is very much, we're either worrying about the past, worrying about the future, worrying about the present. It's just worry, isn't it? Meditation, it's about bringing you back to the present and really being present, and therefore it helps to learn. You learn how to not worry about the past, because that's happened, and not worry about the future, because that's not within your control. And it really helps to sort of ground you, and that's one of the most important things that can do around anxiety. If you want to ring the helpline, we've got more sort of self-help sheets and activities that we can suggest to people as well.
And I think we're just coming to the end of the session now, because I know people are already saying I'm on to my next Zoom. So I just on that anxiety point, I mean, I think the other thing is recognize that everyone gets anxious. And I think and that's one of the things about keeping a diary is a really good way of trying to see, is there any pattern going on? You know, do you have Sunday night anxiety because it's Monday morning and you really don't want to think about going back to work? You know, or is it all, you know, is it linked up to other things that are going on in your life? And this is one of the things that doctors really look for, because the patterns of when people have problems sleeping tell us a lot about whether this might be down to something physical or whether it's more likely to be linked to something psychological. So, you know, I think the diary is a really good way to start. And there are some NHS approved apps that can help you, things like Sleepio, that are really good. So I think we're out of time, aren't we, Andrea? I can see you kind of waving at me. So I just want to say finally a really big thank you to Helen for her contribution. This isn't the only one you've done, I think, Helen, and really grateful for your support on this. Thank you for Andrea and the team. There are lots of others in the team who've been behind getting these webinars up and running, and really big thank you to them, because they don't happen just by themselves. They happen because of lots of people's hard work. So I do want to say a really big thank you to my team, as well as all the people that contributed. And finally, thank you again to everyone who's watching. I hope you found this really helpful. I hope it will help you have a better night's sleep tonight, and help you to help us get everyone to be healthier and to survive stronger through the coming days and weeks ahead of us. Don't forget to look after yourselves, and thank you again for your time today.